Hello, welcome to Finance Sister. My name is Anna, and this is my YouTube channel where we talk about everything related to money, a balanced lifestyle, and specifically today I'm interviewing Amy Winsor, who started a photography business, and I thought it would be great to do a breakdown of starting a side business that will actually bring you long-term profit and be sustainable instead of looking at side hustles, things like that are very temporary. While they are definitely beneficial for making short-term extra cash, I think that it's very valuable to see what the initial cost of starting a side business might be. And photography is a great industry to get into, but it's also very competitive. So I wanted to have her on and give you a breakdown of what it actually looks like to own a photography business and what the costs associated to that are. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please don't forget to subscribe and also comment below with any questions you may have for Amy or myself on the information that we give today. All right, so let's go ahead over. Okay, so would you like to tell us a little bit about your background and your family?
Yeah, you bet. So I've been married to my husband Trevor for 4 years now. We have a 2.5-year-old little boy and a baby on the way, coming in the spring.
So exciting.
Thank you. And we live in Oregon City, Oregon, just outside of Portland. Before having kids, I taught kindergarten for 7 years, but we wanted to make staying home with the kids a priority once we had them. So that's when we turned my hobby of photography into a business so that I can financially support our family mostly from home.
All right, so go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you got started, how long you've been doing photography, and what were some of the initial costs of starting the business.
Yeah.
And then furthering investing in your business.
Right. So in 2009, I graduated from college, and a gift my parents gave me with college graduation was my first Nikon DSLR camera. So with that gift, I just started taking pictures of my friends' life phases for free, for fun, because I loved it. I had a good camera. I could bless people with decent pictures. I was also gifted my first editing program, which is Lightroom, and that's still what I use. So for about 8 years, I would say I dabbled in it. I started charging eventually people that I didn't know, but at the beginning it was all just like, fun, you're engaged, let's take engagement pictures, or you're having a baby, let's do maternity, and then newborn, and then family, and it just kind of grows from there. By about 2013 maybe, I started doing some weddings for a couple years, and then kind of quickly got to the realization that I was already doing a full-time job and coaching, and weddings were a bit more than I wanted to take on. So then I cut back to just doing portrait photography that was a little bit lower key. So then we had my son in 2017, and that fall is when my husband and I sat down and tried to figure out how we can really make this a business that would financially support our family. So we made it legitimate with an official business. We got like the paperwork and logos. We bought a bunch of that stuff. So we probably invested about $1,500 worth that fall to get me a little bit better equipment with lenses and with all the paperwork that I needed. And so I pretty much relaunched my business in 2017, which was busy as much as I wanted probably. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't have huge goals for it, but whatever I was able to make helped our family in ways that I wasn't already, so it felt great. 2018, I stayed pretty busy. By that fall, I got to a place where I decided I know I can take better pictures, and I think I need more education and better equipment. So we decided that fall to really invest, and I purchased a full frame camera, which is a step above from what I was using. That was about $2,000 worth, and took a couple $100 worth of classes in January of this year, 2019. And then a couple months later, invested in a really great portrait lens. So about $3,000 later, we kind of relaunched it again, got new logos, got new business cards, new paperwork, and really feel like it's been a great investment. I finally feel like I'm taking the pictures that I've wanted to be taking. I'm a lot more confident regardless of the scenario. If the lighting isn't perfect, I'm more confident in how to take better pictures. I just, through those years, have gained more experience working with people, working with kids, working with just different ages and situations that maybe I wasn't comfortable with before. So I obviously still have a ways to go, but I feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge and experience in the last couple of years, and new equipment is really
Very
beneficial.
helpful.
Yes.
So the $2,000 investment in the full screen or full frame
Yes.
camera,
Yes.
how much more beneficial do you think that was in comparison to the classes, or were they both mutually beneficial?
They
both worth the
they were
investment?
both. It was a great time to do both, because now I know that I have the equipment, that my knowledge is going to help me get to take the pictures that I want. Where before I felt like, what if I'm going to invest money in classes but I'm still not able to take the pictures because my equipment isn't holding up to what I now know I can do. So knowing that I had great equipment made it even more, what's the word? Just gave me more motivation to put my knowledge to use and to gain more knowledge, because I knew that I had the equipment that I needed to get great pictures. Now it was on me.
Okay, so you touched on something. You mentioned that you invested in a full frame camera for $2,000, but it wasn't until about 2 years after you actually started your business. So
Yes.
you used a camera that you were gifted, so there was no
Right.
money involved to get started with
Right.
this business. And how do you think that it was worth the time frame to wait to buy that camera? And what would you say to someone who is trying to start out? Would you recommend getting the DSLR? Would you recommend getting the full frame camera?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, for my business, we didn't have, or maybe I didn't have huge goals getting started. It was just whatever I could contribute was beneficial. But what I've seen other photographers talk about is, if you're gonna go for this business and start, go with what you know is going to get you good quality. I think that if I were to start today with the goals that I have right now, I would invest in a full frame camera. However, because my goals were lower scale, probably, I was able to improve, and there are some great, they don't have to be full frame cameras. They can be your bottom line, Nikon, Canon, Sony. DSLRs are going to get you great pictures. And then if you learn how to use it properly and you have good editing equipment, you can absolutely start a business on those. If your goal is to immediately get into weddings, you're probably going to want to invest in better equipment, but you can absolutely start a business on the smaller end.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just a ballpark number, how much do you think that you made in those 2 years using that camera before you invested in a full frame camera?
I would guess $12,000.
Okay.
So I was not bringing in huge numbers.
But
my
you
first
still
2 years.
made 12 grand
Yes.
before you did any kind of big
Huge investment. Right.
Like, you proved that you were going to keep going with this
Right.
business, and you clearly were able to make money even off of a camera that most people would not be using for weddings.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Question is tricky. So how do you balance time with your family and then also time investing in your business, especially as a mom and a wife too?
Right.
Because there's no perfect solution to being in that situation. Either you're criticized for not being home more with your
Yes.
baby and your husband, or you're looked down upon for not bringing something to the table
For sure.
financially. So go ahead and just
Yes.
talk about that a little
Like
bit.
you touched on, I wish there was a perfect solution or answer to what it looks like to have great balance. And this is a conversation that is ongoing for my husband and I as we figure out what it looks like for our family in this season of we're trying to pay off debt. So we're kind of in a go-go season that we don't necessarily want to maintain for the rest of our life. So we're trying to figure out what is worth me saying yes to and where it's better for me to turn down some business right now for the sake of our family. So the thing that we love about photography is, yes, I'm on site for photo shoots, but all the before and after work, which is more time than the actual session, generally, is during my son's nap time. So I don't feel like I'm giving up time with my husband or my son for the majority of my business. Another nice thing is that sometimes my husband and son come along on photo shoots, which is fun. If I'm like an hour and a half away and they have a day off, we'll just make a family day out of it. So there's some perks to photography where I didn't want to teach full time because I knew I'd be away from my son all day and didn't want to be tired of kids by the time I came home to my son.
Reality, yes.
Right. But to be perfectly honest, this fall has been my busiest times 4 out of any other season that I've had with photography, and we have found the negative side of being too busy, of my son acting out in ways that he hasn't because mom hasn't been around, and I feel the weight of that completely. So we're right now in a season where we're trying to figure out how to structure so that I'm still able to help as much as I can right now in the season that we're at, but also not sacrifice my son and our family's well-being in the midst of it. So all that to say, it's an ongoing conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we're learning, because my husband travels on the weekends sometimes, how to protect individual days where I won't take on a client, even if I could help our family make a couple $100 extra that month. It's not worth it to our marriage and our family.
Right.
Yes.
Are there any specific things that you would say just be aware of or be intentional about when you are trying to balance that time with family? Or like things that maybe you have noticed, this is a sign that maybe we're working too much, or maybe we need to take a step back?
Yeah. Yeah. When my husband and I don't feel like we have any pockets of time together, which our son is staying up a little later than he used to. He used to go down at 7, so we would have 2 to 3 hours at night to just have our time, and that's not the case anymore. So we're just trying to figure out right now how many sessions is too many for me to take on in a week. What does that look like when my husband's traveling and when he's home, because that number changes. Yeah, there's just a lot of factors that goes into it right now, especially when we can taste the end of our debt-free journey, so it's hard for me to turn down jobs. Usually I'm like, here are the dates I'm available. If it doesn't work, let's get creative. I'm flexible. And now I'm to a point of like, I can do it these 2 dates, and I'm sorry if that doesn't work for you, but those are my only availability right now. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no simple answer on that one.
No.
Question I think a lot of people starting a business would like to know, and especially for photography, is how much did you charge in the beginning, and then how much time did that translate in terms of an hourly rate?
Yeah.
And then also, because you transitioned in from not charging anybody that you knew,
Right.
how did you decide when to start that,
Right.
and who to charge, and then how much?
Yeah. So as you said, I just did friends for free. Thanks to social media, there's free marketing in there. So I just got referrals from people who saw work. So I started just at a base of 100 per session, regardless of the session, not including weddings. But from newborn to family, anything was just $100.
That was for an hour.
No. Some sessions are an hour. Yes, newborn can be like 3 hours, and it would be the same cost. I didn't start smart.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I just was like, just 100 an hour. Once I launched my business in 2017, I raised my prices a little bit. I didn't want to lose all the clients that I'd had for years, but also knew I needed to make a bit more. So then I started making closer to 25 to 30 an hour. I re-raised my prices last spring when I kind of launched again in 2019. Now I'm making closer to $35 to $50 an hour.
Okay, so obviously you guys have both been working a lot of hours.
Yes.
How much faster do you think you guys have been able to reach one of your biggest financial goals right now, which is paying off debt? How much faster do you think you've been able to do that because of you starting this photography business?
Yeah. So my husband has a full-time job and a part-time job. a stipend of his full-time job goes towards debt. All of his part-time job goes towards debt. And then all of mine, outside of what we tithe, goes towards debt. At this point, I'm contributing about half of our debt payment. So we're probably about a year ahead of schedule of what we would be had I not been doing my photography.
A year. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Which is a
significant.
long time.
That's a very long time, especially to be putting in so many hours. Like, how
Yes.
estimated how many hours do you think combined you both work in a week?
We're probably around 100 hours a week.
Yeah. So 100 hours a week
Mm-hmm.
and a year of that.
Right.
Think about that, people.
Yes.
That's a long damn time.
That is a long time.
Okay, so one last thing that I wanted to ask about, since if you have started or tried to start a small business, then you know that there can be some difficult parts, especially once you've started, things have kind of worn off. It's a little bit harder to keep going and stay self-disciplined and motivated to actually follow through with your goals. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about, was there any part of starting this photography business that was either harder than you expected, or and then also what it kind of looked like in the moments where maybe things weren't very easy? How did you work through it?
Yeah.
Were there any lulls? Stuff like that.
Yeah, good questions. So I would say a constant difficulty that I have, challenge, is, for one, I'm a people pleaser, and I always want people to love their pictures. I want to be worth their investment. I know people aren't just giving me $20. They're giving me a decent amount of money to take their pictures. So I always feel the weight of people's expectations and my own expectations. And I leave most sessions with regret of something. I wish I would have done something. So I feel like it almost always ends with a win. People love their pictures and they're grateful and appreciative, but there's always self-doubt and self-critique mixed. During the session, as I'm editing, I deal with that every session. Very rarely am I like, home run, that was great from start to finish.
That's good to know.
Yes, and also seasonally it changes so much. Like I said, this fall is by far, I'm working 4 times as much as I did in the spring, and in the winter, like January, February, I think I only had 1 session a month this last year. Thankfully I'm booked out more than that right now, but as I was investing in equipment and taking classes and booking 1 session a month, you just doubt, like, are people did they go away? Did they find another photographer? Is it gonna come back? You deal with all those questions in the midst of it. We were trying to forecast what I could bring in the summer and fall, and I'm doubting, like, I think I could do this, but now I'm not booking sessions this winter, which in the back of my head I know is normal, but you just doubt if you still have your clientele that you had before. So thankfully it's come back. But you definitely deal with the doubts in the midst of it, for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
So that's important for everyone who is starting any kind of business.
Yes.
To remember and to hear is that it's not always going to be a smooth process,
No.
and you are always going to be your biggest enemy in a
Right.
lot of ways
Right.
in terms of self-doubt and just
Yes.
needing to push through.
Right.
Thank you, Amy, so much for letting me interview you.
Yeah.
And if you guys are needing any photography, go check out Amy Winsor Photography on Instagram, Facebook. She has a great website, and she does maternity, newborn, engagements, weddings, senior photos, just about anything. And also in the Oregon City, Portland, Oregon area. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Oh, well, it's fun sitting down and talking with you. Thanks, Anna. It's fun following your journey, too. We're both on a debt-free journey right now from school loans, so
Yes.
it's good to have camaraderie.
Yes.
It's not an easy journey, but when you can help people stay focused on the prize, it's really beneficial, and you've done that for me, so thank you.
Absolutely. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.